Actually, do you do giveaways?
Yeah, we
do.
Yeah,
I'll sign these and I'll give them to you.
Do brilliant. Yeah. So if you like and share this video, you can win these books.
Yeah.
Signed by Olive. Yeah. So like and share.
Subscribe. There's a YouTube thing. Yeah. So subscribe and leave a comment after you've subscribed and
to win the books. I could see your dad sitting in the corner.
So we thinking you've got notions doing a fucking podcast with all your books.
Just don't get carried away now. Father used to smoke sweet Afton, and he's there. Go on, Olive, tell it a better one. Get your legs.
That's funny. Right, just gonna say hello to the camera, to the folks at home, and then we'll go. Is that all going? This is always weird again. Back again in the studio. Welcome back to Everything for Nothing, episode 644, is it?
645.
645. Yeah. Okay. Yeah, welcome back to episode 645. This week we have Olive Collins on, who's an author. What you actually have 2 of your books there, which is handy to show.
I have 2 of the most recent ones. The Weaver's Legacy, based on the Irish who went out to the American West during they wanted to establish colonies. They wanted to own land.
Yeah.
So they got 160 acres for $20.
Okay, all right.
And
good deal.
Now it wasn't in a lot of respects because some of the land was parched. And while I was researching it, I came across one story.
Wait, where did you say it was? Sorry?
It's based out on the border of South Dakota and
right,
Wyoming. So they were giving away all this land in the 1860s, and it still belonged to the Indians.
Yeah. Okay.
And one of the stories I came across was that these people were on the wagon trail, and they were all going out west. Yeah.
Indians shooting arrows at them and all that, correct?
Yeah, they would have been attacked. Yeah. But then the Indians helped them, which is overlooked an awful lot. Okay. Yeah. They helped them enormously. Yeah. Fed them along the way, and they bartered with them. Now they charged them if they wanted to cross a river. They made a few dollars that way.
Yeah.
But there was one story where they came across a house, a little shack, and on the door of it was something like, I've got 10 miles to water, 10 miles to wood, 1 mile to hell, and I've been there already. And the shack was empty.
Wow. Jesus.
So it was hard, like sometimes there was nothing, but South Dakota, because of the hills, and they had water trickling down.
Where did you get to start that story like this, and what got you hooked into that?
I just loved all those stories about the Native American Indians.
I loved that time. Yeah. That like all my favorite movies and TV shows. Like I don't know if you've seen a TV show, Godless. It's a 1 season thing on Netflix.
I saw it. It's brilliant.
It's so good. But I just love that energy, that time, like because like that oddly is like sort of the beginning of American history. Like for America as we know it. Obviously, there's loads of history, like Columbus and all that. But as in the sort of like our foundations in Ireland are so, and in England they're so much older. But like the real sort of like recorded foundations in America are sort of like that time of like like. There wasn't a long time between not having guns to having guns in that time in America, and that's such a bizarre.
And it was really only starting up. Like they called it the frontier, and they knew nothing beyond that.
Yeah.
Did you watch Little House on the Prairie?
A few times. Now I read an awful lot of books. You read a huge amount to get a sense of the time.
Yeah.
And I went out there. For a month.
Wow.
Yeah, I did. And I travelled by car from Iowa, which is kind of on the border of the very east of South Dakota. I travelled right through South Dakota, Wyoming, Idaho, and over as far as Baker in Oregon.
It's beautiful.
That's mad.
It is, but do you know what struck me? I was so pleased I went out there. Because you can read books and you get a huge sense of the time.
Yeah.
And I have with the other books, and like this one is Jamaica. I had been to Cuba, but what really struck me, and like I've seen some quite good sites now, but what struck me when I was doing this were the prairies.
Yeah,
like you can drive for an hour. Nothing.
Yeah.
So it's only when I actually saw that, and I had read about it, and I read there was nothing in the prairies, and I'd read that you can travel for miles and see nothing.
That's amazing.
But the
Nothing could
scale of it
compare.
on your eye is just insane, isn't it?
Yeah,
It's
it
just
is.
intense. Yeah.
And when we were planning our trip, we were landing this place, Iowa, and then there was Sioux Falls below that, and then just below that there was this town called O'Neill. It's worth googling now. It's really interesting. It started off as an Irish colony, one of these colonies, and it's called O'Neill.
At what
They had-
time was that roughly? Do you know, like
They were all started around the 1860s. 1860s, 1870s.
Started by Irish at that time.
Oh yeah,
Saying
there was
Irish,
loads of Irish out there then, and
Okay,
this
right.
was called after this captain. He was an O'Neill in the army, so he
Okay.
established this town. But you'd want to see the website. They
Yeah.
have all these shamrocks, and they have horses painted green, and they have all of this.
Tasteful,
Yeah.
So totally. So I said, I'm going to we'll just pop down here.
Yeah.
But when we were going to pop down there, it was going to take us 2 days.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's
So it's nothing
That's so
to prepare
mad.
you for how vast America was.
Yeah.
You know the way we've all seen the cities.
Yeah.
But this.
I want to go out and see that. I only discovered recently on my mother's side, my ancestors did that and came back.
I remember hearing about that.
On
Oh, yeah, you were saying
Maloney's
that the
and-
other day.
my
This is
my
mad.
mother's granny.
Yeah.
They went out on hoopback wagon to stake their claim, and then discovered somebody died in Ireland, and then pack your stuff up and back.
They came
Yeah.
back.
Yeah, they came like the mad. That's
And then
mad.
you're kind of thinking, what if they'd stayed out there? Like, what would you see? So I want to go. And I found
It's
out.
magnificent.
Found out off my mother's cousins. I've written down all the addresses and details.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, and they staked their claim and then left it. But then somebody wrote to them to say, "What are you coming back?" Or
That's
they
mad.
said no.
It's mad that they heard that someone died. Like what? Like letter? Like
Must have been. I don't
isn't it?
know.
But like
Pigeon.
pigeon.
It's
yeah,
very
yeah.
unusual for them to come back because
Yeah.
the trail out there was horrendous. Like they used to have to
Yeah.
dismantle the wagons to cross rivers. People died and they had to bury the dead where they found them.
Yeah, it
Yeah.
was
Where
they
that,
died.
Steinbeck's The Grapes of
Oh,
Wrath.
that's brilliant.
Yeah, that's amazing, that journey.
Yeah. But anyway, that's what that one. And
Yeah.
then this one is called The Tide Between Us. And
Wow.
that is based on the Irish, who 25% of Jamaicans claim Irish descent.
Yeah, I heard about
So-
that.
In 1650s, England took over Jamaica as a colony,
Yeah.
and they needed to populate their island.
Yeah.
So we're better to go Ireland.
Yeah.
So at one point, they deported 2,000 children. Now, not a lot have
Children?
survived, yeah. So they deported 2,000 children between the age of 10 and 14.
That's
1,000
mad.
boys and 1,000 girls. And Cromwell wrote to one of his friends who was a planter in
Yeah.
Jamaica.
Yeah.
And Jamaica was making them so much money because the sugar,
Yeah, yeah.
they were willing to let go of all of something, chunks of America, but they had to keep Jamaica because it was making them so much, it was worth so much to the exchequer.
That's mad.
And his letter still exists, and he says, I'm sending you out 2,000 children to do what you will with them.
Yeah.
And then the Irish were deported to the Caribbean until the 1850s.
Oh wow.
So
Didn't I like what is that? Is it Jamaica where there's that part of Jamaica where they all have Cork accents? I
also
never see that.
Montserrat.
Is it
That's
Mon-
another
okay,
place
right.
that they sent them, yeah.
That's mad. Like you know,
Yeah.
like it's
So
just
I wrote about one child going out, and I changed the year, so I started in 1824 because I wanted to bring it up to
yeah.
current time.
Like, I know it was a hard life when people went out there and, you know, it was kind of convicts, criminals, allegedly, like minor misdemeanors, but like now who's laughing? You can't help but kind of
yeah.
look at it with, you know, how beautiful those environments are now.
Jamaica. Jamaica's
Yeah,
not
like all
beautiful.
sorts of-
Is it? Or is it the
Well,
scenery?
as in, yeah, like
But it's
in terms of a
definitely-
natural place, you know, the weather,
Yeah,
and
the weather and
oceans.
stuff.
It is, but they're still a poor
Oh.
nation. Now it's by all accounts very happy.
Yeah, yeah.
There is that.
The old vitamin C. Is it the sun? Is it vitamin,
Vitamin
D? Or
D.
C?
Yeah.
Is it? I don't know.
I'm
When I was researching it, there was first of all, I heard about this about 20 years ago, long before the internet came
You
out.
were in Cuba or something. wasn't
Actually,
it?
I was in Israel,
Oh,
and it was
Israel.
St. Patrick's Day,
God.
and it was totally crazy.
Well,
And this
St.
African
Patrick's Day in
American,
Israel.
yeah,
That's
it's mad.
special.
This African American guy started telling me he was Irish.
yeah.
Now, in the 90s, in Ireland, everybody's white, Catholic, and you have an Irish surname. So here, this African American telling me this.
Irish.
But anyway, he knew a lot of the Irish songs.
Yeah.
So I was
Oh,
kind of
yeah.
gobsmacked. So when the internet became available, I checked it out, and I just couldn't believe it. Now, there's a lot of falsehoods.
Yeah, yeah.
They were never slaves.
Yeah, yeah.
They were indentured
Yeah.
servants.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
So they had to serve a certain length of time.
Okay.
They had hope. The African slave had none.
Yeah.
That's the big difference.
Yeah.
But
That's
when I was researching it, I always think it's a good point to start with the names of who were in politics at the time.
Okay.
So there was one guy, and his name was, he was as black as your jumper and my jacket.
yeah.
His surname was Fagan.
Fagin, no way, that's mad.
Oh.
We just had a guy in the podcast called second name Fagin as well.
Yeah.
And I never heard that name till him. Like, and
Oh, really?
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's weird. So that's a mad Fagin.
Yeah. So they had a load of and then there'd be the Christian name would be spelled differently, Patrak.
Okay, all right.
And so 25% claim Irish descent. You see,
Wow.
the island, apart from African Americans.
Yeah.
slaves.
And did you have to go out there?
No, I went as far as Cuba. You see,
Oh,
that
yeah,
section of the
yeah.
book finishes in 1891
Okay.
in Jamaica.
What do you think of Cuba? Yeah.
I thought it was magnificent.
I love
I
it,
think
yeah.
it's like
Yeah,
Ireland in the
Hugh brought
70s.
back that. Was that you got that in
back
Cuba?
from Cuba, yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, that's really nice.
Yeah,
I
yeah.
think
Yeah.
Cuba is just
And,
buzzing.
Yeah. I love it. Oh, it's the best.
So you were out there.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, it's brilliant. It's one of the few places I'd go back to.
Me too. I'm going the minute this thing lifts. I'm back out
you
there
go back
again.
out there.
Yeah. It's class.
Why is it one of the few places? Like, is it the other? Do you like
you
traveling?
see it, I do. But once you see
Yeah.
a place, you see it.
Okay, yeah. That's fair.
Yeah, there's not many places that would draw you back. Like,
Well,
once-
the curiosity is done.
yeah.
yeah, definitely.
That's
I agree with
interesting.
you.
Yeah.
But I would definitely go back just to hang out there. I just thought the people were magnificent.
Some
The
crack.
atmosphere,
Yeah.
the air. It's like Ireland nearly in
Sharing
the
cars.
70s.
You get in a taxi and someone else gets in beside you. I just
No
love
Yeah.
it.
way.
There's loads of Cubans, massive Cuban community where I was working in South Africa. Loads
No
of them,
way.
yeah. And they all have their parties, get-togethers, everything like that. And it is that's their aim is like to bring a little piece of Cuba
Yeah.
into South Africa.
That's class.
It's good
They
crack.
I'd say they're wild for the parties. Like,
But
because you were showing me that video, like,
oh yeah.
at like 7 in the morning, they're down just playing mad music.
Oh,
Trying to
yeah,
get
yeah,
the
yeah.
I
money.
love the music, and they play those in all the bars.
They walk
Yeah.
up to you. We went to the Buena Vista as well, a social club, and all these, we see the movie, but the people in the movie then are coming out there in their 80s and they're dancing in
Yeah.
front of you and shaking it.
And they all have these big long cigars,
Yeah.
and they just throw caution to the wind. I went to see
Yeah.
Hemingway's house when I was
Me
there.
too. Yeah, it's class.
But they were working on it. So I
Oh.
had this driver, and he had the gold tooth, and he had the big huge car. And
Nice.
very nice now. So we got up to Hemingway's house, and he comes back to the car, and he says, he's close. And I said, I don't believe this. Tell him I'll give him €20. It might cost you more. I said, okay, 30. So I'd say now the driver took 10. But anyway, we got it. We got in a side gate,
Yeah.
and it was like we were robbing the house because we had to go through a wood. They were making a movie at the time on
Yeah.
Hemingway, and they were using the house, so nobody was
Oh,
ever
no
there.
way.
So we ran up through the wood, and your man was like this, my driver. He was going, back.
So you
There was this
helping
wood-
you sneak in.
Sneaked in
That's mad.
all around, had this really good view, and then we saw Hemingway's boat, and there was a
No
big
way.
sign saying, "Do not get in the boat."
And
Do not get
Straight in.
So I make picture. So I said, okay. So I stood at the front of the boat. Get in boat. Look around. So click. And
that's
stole back
savage.
down through, saw the swimming pool, saw everything. It was brilliant.
So that was worth the 30 quid anyway. Good
That
tour,
was definitely
tour
worth it.
guide.
Yeah.
The
Good
guy
tour
was
guide.
totally entertaining as
That's
well.
class.
Wow.
That's savage.
But come here, how did you actually get started in writing the first day?
I just always wanted it. I always had kind of stories in my head.
Brilliant.
What was the trigger though? Because loads of writers say that it was like always stories and always messing around with writing. What was the thing that actually triggered you to be like, right, this is
Go.
I'd say I read the book called The Outsiders, and then I read Edna O'Brien's book, Country Girls.
Brilliant.
And I remember thinking, this is magnificent.
yeah.
And then I remember thinking, I think I could write this.
Yeah.
Naturally, it took me years, because I didn't realise at the time. Writing takes a level of maturity. It's one of the reasons writers just do not want their back catalogue sold.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I just loved it. It's another world. You live, like, I'm not good with reality, so you live beside
Yeah,
these
'cause
people.
I read one of the interviews that you said like that the characters actually come through and they write it for you.
Yeah,
in
and
the
that's
end.
when you arrive at that, it's just magnificent.
Yeah.
Because it's like they're dictating the story, and they
Yeah.
become so real. Now, it is hard going to get to that point.
Yeah.
Like, I'm struggling. I kind of have it now on the next book. And it is, you kind of, you're in a good place with it when you think, what's Elizabeth going to think about that? And I have a character called the orphan. What will the orphan think?
So, that's so interesting.
What drew you to like historical fiction? Because it's almost like making more work for yourself.
It
when
is.
you do
There's
something
huge
like
work,
that.
but there's
Yeah.
nothing new to discover now. I know what happens today, if you like.
Okay.
But like you said there, you're fascinated by the Wild West and all
Yeah.
of that. I always was, and the only way to go back is to go back through the characters.
Yeah. That's
And you
so
do,
cool.
you never actually, as you're writing the book, you don't have it sorted. So you're as curious to see how this evolves as the reader is.
Definitely, yeah.
Do you ever dream about them, the characters?
Yeah, I would. Yeah.
Oh, brilliant.
Hey,
And-
sorry, go on.
But sometimes you have trouble letting go of the old characters.
Okay,
you said
yeah.
there now, do you ever dream about the
Yeah.
old character?
You need
the
them
other
gone.
characters? There's a character called there's a character called Goldie in this,
Yeah.
and I just loved her.
Yeah.
And I kept writing about Goldie in the current book I'm working on, and I kept going, just let it go. Now the same thing happened to me in The Tide Between Us, because there's a cranky old woman in this, and
Brilliant. Like.
yeah, she's very cross. It's really what I'll be like when I'm old. Probably like it when I am. Like right now, I'm probably like
Do
it.
whatever the hell you want. Yeah. Brilliant.
Yeah. So it's hard to park it,
Yeah.
and you really have to work hard to find
Yeah.
this particular character,
Yeah.
what you're
yeah.
working on.
Yeah.
And I like when that happens, and I'm part of a writers group, and I just put the laptop down the other night after everybody. They critique our pieces. It's very serious.
Okay.
So we have to send them on a Sunday night, and then they critique them.
God, that's intense.
Who critiques them? Is it like your peers, like other
Yeah,
writers and
there's
stuff?
there's about 6 of us, and we're all serious in this writers group.
Is that in Ireland? All
It is,
writers
yeah, and
from
it's
Ireland,
yeah. Some
Okay.
of them are. One of the girls is published. Yeah, they're
Okay.
very serious. Another girl owns a writing academy.
yeah. All right.
But it is, and they critique them.
Yeah.
Sometimes you're struggling. It's very, it's frustrating. There's days where you really are frustrated,
Yeah.
and you kind of, because it's such a solitary job, you can lapse into self-doubt really quickly.
Yeah.
lose
Yeah.
perspective and
Yeah, and then somebody sends you an email, and you might think, maybe I can do it.
Did
But you do get confidence as it goes on.
Yeah.
That, writing that book, I only had a year to do that on Jamaica, because I had a publishing deal, and I had only the year, and I met people at my launch for
Yeah.
the previous book, and because I was so absorbed in that, and I was
Yeah.
working full time as well. The next time I met them was a year later when this was being launched.
Yeah. That's so mad. Did you ever, like what you're saying about your characters, like, have you experienced sort of like internal processing via those characters? As in, were you able, like, having a connection to those characters? Were there parts of those characters that you found like that might have actually, you're like, oh wait, I'm kind of like that or something
Oh,
like that? Yeah. And
That's why the older woman in this book, that's what I'm going to be like when I'm old.
That's
She's
okay, yeah.
cranky, and she does her own thing, and she's
Yeah.
Them are the dreams.
a loner,
Yeah.
and
All the
and you
good stuff.
do, you do bring a part, absolutely.
but have you ever found that the characters were like a step ahead of you, and then like, I don't know how to
You
explain
learn
that.
that from the
Like
characters.
learn
like,
that from them.
No, and I'd love to,
Wow.
because I think we don't see our life objectively.
Yeah,
Whereas
exactly.
I can see all of these
Exactly.
characters,
So true.
and
Yeah.
as I'm working through it, they're almost maturing,
Mm.
and you think, okay, it's like to become real people.
Yeah,
You're
yeah,
going, like this character I'm working on at the moment, Elizabeth. Go on, Elizabeth. Leave
yeah,
her husband. I think she is anyway.
yeah.
She'll kill him. Somebody said to me one time, and I think they were being very derogatory. They said, "You write romance novels." Let me just be clear: these are not romance novels. And I said to this guy, "My women." He was very conservative, by the way, and I think he was appalled at what I said. I said, "My women leave their husbands and they find independence." And in fact, in my first book, my woman, leading lady, had her husband shot.
Yeah.
So very, very romantic.
So there's no romantic thing. And you get these reviews, and some poor creator bought this thinking it was a romantic novel. And she did say, I thought this was romantic.
They could cut your
That's
throat in your
funny.
sleep. They're the
That's-
type of women you're talking.
It's really me. That's the side of me that comes into the book.
That's funny.
how did that guy respond when you
And he just went very quiet, and he realised
Yeah, I
then
didn't
that
wanna
I
hear
wasn't one of these fluffy little girly writing
Yeah.
about meeting the man of her dreams and going to settle down. And
yeah, there's
No.
enough of that stuff.
And would
out
you
there, I
get
think.
like you get emails off people that give you a lift then to would you?
it's great.
Yeah,
I do,
what
yeah.
kind of stuff would they say?
Just that they've read it's very complimentary.
Yeah.
And I still look at them,
yeah.
and
Some buzz,
I'm
I'd say.
like, I had a publishing deal,
Yeah.
and I never got any emails. I never got,
Okay. Yeah.
you'd see somebody on a bus with your book,
Yeah,
and
yeah,
that
that's a
brings
buzz.
great buzz.
Yeah.
But
That
this-
must be mad. What was
Yeah,
it like the
just-
first time you experienced that? Like, was it like a random experience where you seen someone with a
Yeah,
book?
I did on a bus, and I remember
Wow.
thinking, I had to get off, okay, because I was looking at them going, does she like it? Does she like it?"
Yeah.
Did you not? Were you not tempted to be up and be like, "It's me"?
No, I
That's
wasn't.
me.
Really?
'Cause I
Did
was
you not
afraid-
do that?
God,
No,
I think
no,
No way.
No, and it is lovely when
I
you
know.
see it, and it's great to go into a bookshop and see it. And
Yeah.
actually, the first book, I couldn't find it when I was leaving. Obviously, I'm not very organised.
Yeah.
That reached number 3 in the Irish Times. So it's a
Yeah, that's
real.
huge.
Yeah.
I mean,
That's
all my
mad.
life I've looked at the Irish Times on a Saturday to see
Yeah.
what was on the bestseller, and chances
Yeah.
are I would have probably read it. So
Yeah.
to see yours there,
That's cool.
You won an award for that, didn't you?
I did. Yeah, I won an award, the Annie McHale debut award.
Wow.
Now that was total buzz.
That
'Cause
must
I
have
had
been
never.
amazing.
That's incredible.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's really cool.
I remember
I-
getting a buzz for you, like seeing my mum. She was in the sitting room. That book would be in the sitting room. She was in the kitchen. It was in the kitchen. It was kind of like the head didn't come out of the
Yeah.
book. Like,
Yeah, I'm
you know.
delighted to hear
Yeah,
that, and
yeah,
that goes
she-
a long way
that's
because it is
cool.
such a solitary. But people do write. It
Yeah.
is. There's nothing like it.
Yeah.
Like to actually bring joy to somebody who's living in, Texas. There's a woman. The only reason I know that is she emailed me.
Yeah.
She's after reading the new one.
Yeah.
Okay.
She emailed last night, and to think that somebody is sitting in their living room
In Texas.
in Texas
Yeah. it's
reading your
mental.
book, and that
Yeah.
she actually has to look for you to find
That's mad.
find you
yeah.
online and send an email.
That's class.
Like, yeah, that she has the urge to get to you and thank you.
Yeah,
and, like, that's really cool. Like,
where the real buzz, and that's why
yeah.
I know people online. Like, I got the rights back for my books, and then I went. I self-published them and I edited them. There's a huge process.
That must have been a
Yeah.
huge learning curve, is it? Getting.
I'll tell you.
back in-
Yeah,
well,
it was. Well, you see, the publishing deal covered all of that because I thought once the book was written, it was written.
Yeah.
But publishing houses have these editors, and that was just the best learning curve for me ever.
Yeah.
Because the editor will pick through it, and you think the whole thing is sorted. So I had one character. This will give you an example, and she was meeting this man on the. She was having an affair, in case you think it was romance, all right? She was meeting this guy on the canal in Dublin, and I went, and now everything had to build up. That the time had to be right because she was going to go home, and everything
Yeah.
knocked on from that. So the time had to be right.
Yeah.
So, and I have this scene, and she's on the canal, and he's going to leave her, and I said, just one line, under the cover of darkness. And then my editor wrote back, and she said, it's June, and it's 10 o'clock, and it's still bright.
Yeah.
And it had to be dark. And then I had to go back and rethink.
Oh, wow.
So there's little things like that.
Jeez, that's mad. So, like, that's also the skill of the editor as well. Obviously, in my head, like, as I'm not in the industry, I just thought, like, editing was like, yeah, you're just obviously a part of it is just like correcting the words and stuff. But, like, for that ability, do you need the editor to also be able to see
Totally.
what you see, like?
No, you see,
Or
I have a blind spot with it, and we're never going to see it because we're
Yeah.
so.
so they're
Yeah.
reading from
Yeah.
a point of neutrality,
So
like.
people write books, and they put them onto
Mm,
Amazon. They don't bother with the editor because they think they don't need it.
Yeah.
yeah, that's.
And then
mad.
they get these really bad reviews. But
Yeah.
I know I need an editor. So I have a few
Yeah.
different editors. So I had this edited because it was a publishing deal, and
Yeah.
it's still not edited entirely.
Yeah.
So I have a structural editor first. who
Yeah.
does it. And it's, I mean, you could have 90,000 words down, 100,000.
Yeah.
Delete. Then it goes from the structural editor, it comes back to me, and you rewrite the book again, you rewrite it again. And then when you finally think it's done, you send it to a line editor.
Which
and then
is-
she goes through the parts that I would have missed.
Oh, wow. That's so.
And then it goes to a proofreader.
Yeah.
Because I
Yeah.
can acknowledge my weakness, and it is typos.
So a proofreader then is the final.
Final
and that's,
woman.
Yeah,
that's
that's
the
like the
text and the.
technical stuff,
Okay,
yeah.
right.
And even then, it's never really finished, because once my proofreader had read this,
Yeah.
a book, it takes time to digest, and
Mm.
it kind of, other things surface, so you have to let it sit. So I
Yeah.
hadn't done this with that, and then the proofreader read it, and then all of this. And then I remember thinking, I don't like the ending.
Mm.
So I sat and thought, and even when the proofreader sent it back, I added about another 2 chapters, and I'm glad I did, because it made a huge difference.
Yeah.
But I had to give it to a friend then, who I know is a good editor, and she proofread
Okay.
and line edited the last few. But you
Wow.
can't see the work objectively. Like,
Yeah.
I'm so
Yeah.
close to it,
Yeah.
I can't see it.
So your job is almost like the emotional attachment in it, like the character development being in
Yeah.
that. It's
Yeah.
a totally different thing from the nuts and bolts of it and the presentation of it.
And then a line editor will go through it and say, that's too clunky,
Yeah.
remove that, you've really
Yeah.
said that.
That's
Yeah, I had a few glaring, 1 or 2 ones in this, and I was so grateful. I can't remember them now. But I had them in America, because the book was based in the States. And I also used English American on it, because 90% of my books are sold in America.
Okay.
And sometimes Americans leave these reviews saying, spelling was all wrong. in that book."
Yeah,
Oh,
yeah.
sorry, I did that with an Irish accent. Spelling was all wrong. Because it's Irish spelling.
Yeah.
That's mad. And I think I would have never thought about that. Like, I just thought an editor was the text. I definitely would need, I'd say, loads of proofreading, because I'm really bad in conversation for, like, thinking that the person I'm talking to has heard my thoughts before saying a thing. So I'll say the end of my thought and be like, "Oh, how do you not get it?" Like,
Can you not hear Kieran's thoughts? No.
And I'm really bad at doing that.
Yes, your
good.
spelling's crap as well.
Yeah, my spelling's really bad. And like, yeah, even like when we were doing that poster for the Patrick's Day parade, like a day before, like the posters were stuck around everywhere, and Melvin said, "You spell Facebook with one O, so just fuck." Yeah, good.
That was just,
thank
you
you.
see, you're all awake.
Yeah. That's why I said, I was like, lads, I'm not the only one. I was just like, you know, you all missed it too, like, but yeah, it's still my fault, of course. But yeah, I do that thing where I just I don't know what it is, and it's not that I expect people to know my thoughts or anything like that. I just in my head, because my thoughts are an actual, you know, it's like a dialogue in your head. It's like a voice, your own voice in your own head. Like when you're discussing stuff with your head, it's nearly like, I know, I forget that, like the person I'm having a conversation with sometimes like didn't get that, and I'm like, okay, now I have to go back to the start and say what I just said in my head to you.
Are you glad he's not your editor?
You'd be very good.
No, I would be so
I
bad
think
at
it's a
that.
gift, actually, the editing. 'Cause
Yeah, it's
Yeah.
Yeah.
and proofreading.
Oh,
Yeah,
definitely. Oh, yeah.
Proofreading, Jesus, I would have done a fair bit of that earlier in my life. Yeah,
No way.
it's a real skill.
Isn't
hard.
it?
You
Yeah.
don't even need to know meaning of things. Like it's just, you know, you are just looking for the.
Do you need
Yeah.
to not have
printed version of
emotion? Like, not have emotion, but like, yeah.
It's almost like pattern recognition,
Okay.
kind of, I suppose.
Yeah.
And you
yeah.
need to just be so focused. I
Yeah,
don't
you
know how
do.
they do it.
Yeah,
Yeah.
see, I can't, because I'd want to, when I can't read, like, learning books, and I want, as you were saying, like, about how I learn best about history is through storytelling, like, when it's the Wild West, stuff like that. So that's why I can't read, like, facts and numbers. It doesn't stick with me, because I attain information through emotion, so I need, like, that sort of emotional stimulation to remember and to keep things in, and so I can't read books unless my head acts. I really can imagine things in my head, and I get there, and I'd imagine, like, you need to be so focused on the words, and you can't have, like, I say, like, you could nearly not have any imagine. Do you imagine the characters yourself when you're doing
No,
it?
that would be
Okay.
because then you'd miss the technicality.
Yeah,
of it. It's
yeah.
just
Do you
not
imagine the whole
working.
scene and then write it? Is that the way it works, or the little
No,
bits
I
and bits?
start, and then I want the language to be nice,
Okay,
Yeah.
and I want it to flow well.
lovely.
So I start, and
Yeah.
then you end up tying it all in.
Yeah.
But I had another agent at one stage. She was interested, and she, like, you learn everything along the way. And she said to me, every chapter has to have a beginning and end, and things
Oh,
like
wow.
that
That
stick
is
with
clever.
you. You know,
Mm.
So they're all scenes on their own that you
Yeah.
can nearly pull out.
that's it, and it's
Lovely.
brilliant because
They're like
I-
movie scenes.
yeah.
They'd
So
make
the
good
book would be
movies.
about. This one is about 105,000.
Yeah.
This is about 95,000.
Yeah.
So you write about 140,000 words. But as you're writing, then it's like these little balloons pop up. Boom, boom. I'll use this, and suddenly you get this rush of, God, that's
It's
great.
all happening.
Yeah.
Yeah. So you have to write a huge amount. People think you just sit down and you write a book and you say, Jimmy and Mary went up the hill and they came down the other side. You're actually pouring yourself
And,
into
like,
it.
Yeah.
Language has such a rhythm. Like I always used to think it's like you know when you're right because you've got that rhythm in what you're
Yeah.
reading and what you're producing.
And you're happy
and-
yourself. But then
Yeah.
another agent that I had said to me, every book has to have, she said to me, every book has to have an orgasm on it. Now, I don't know what that poor girl
I
was
know.
into, but I know what she means.
Yeah, it needs to go to
Yeah,
a
yeah,
climax,
yeah.
kind of a.
Yeah, it has to have something. So
Yeah.
even to this day, I still read pages. You're thinking about this editor, or this
I know.
agent having an orgasm.
I'm trying
I
not
won't
to,
even
be honest
imitate
with
that
you.
now. I'm going to
Trying
do
not
something
It's
there.
kind of like the story arc, isn't it? Where,
Yeah.
And then it comes.
Yeah.
Yeah,
So
and it's
every-
all building towards that.
Yeah, and every page, but it has to be engaging as well. And I'm kind of lucky because I'm easily distracted. I have a very short concentration span, and if it doesn't engage me,
You're gone.
yeah,
The thing is, there's two kinds of engagement I always find with reading. So one is like the plot engagement where they're real page turners and you're just turning because you want that momentum to find out what happens. And then there's like the sort of literary aspect where you're reading a page and you're like, I actually don't want to turn the page because what I'm reading is just so beautiful in
Yeah.
terms of the linguistic structure and the vocab and that
Yeah.
just all of it is just beautiful what you're reading.
yeah.
And they're
I love
different
when that
aspects.
happens. With other
Yeah.
books, I read Academy Street lately, and an Irish writer, Mary Costello, and it just blew my mind. Every paragraph. There wasn't a word wasted in the whole book.
That's
Yeah.
cool.
Yeah. So I like when that, and you strive to make every book better.
Yeah.
you know.
I could see your books being made into movies. Could you ever see that? No.
Well, actually,
Yeah.
I could.
You could. Good. Very good. Very
Right.
good.
Well, it's very interesting because this book is based, The Tie Between Us is
That would
based
make
about
a great movie.
Yeah, but it's very controversial. It's based between Ireland and Jamaica, and it's about the Irish
Yeah.
indentured servants. There's a huge difference.
Yeah.
The Irish were indentured servants; they were not slaves.
Yes.
Yeah.
So America at the moment is in turmoil. So I run these Facebook ads for the books.
Yeah.
So this one is all happy, and I read this book, and I think it's great.
Okay.
This one,
They're not happy.
you have to vet it,
Oh, yeah.
and some of the comments are vitriolic.
Yeah.
This is an example that all people were slaves, not just blacks.
Yeah.
And then somebody else comes back and says, somebody said to me the other day, like, you have to have a thick skin. And
Yeah.
one woman said, you're still making money out of us. More or less out of
Jesus.
slavery.
Wow.
I never foresaw any of this happening.
Wow.
Yeah,
It is
yeah.
very controversial.
Yeah.
So every morning, it takes me about 20 minutes to go through the comments below the ads
Yeah.
for this book.
Yeah.
And anything that's too hateful, I remove it.
Yes,
Yeah.
of course. Yeah.
And then it's horrible
Yeah.
what's been
Yeah.
said. So people think, this is great, there's white slaves.
Yeah.
First of all, they were never slaves. And I wrote a blog about
Yeah,
this.
yeah,
They
yeah.
were not slaves.
Yeah,
And
yeah.
there is one defining difference.
Mm.
The Irish had hope. They were indentured servants.
Yeah.
They were not slaves.
Yeah.
They would get their freedom. Now, some of them, the majority died because the Irish
Yeah.
skin
Yeah, it
was,
wasn't suitable.
it couldn't cope with the Caribbean sun.
Yeah.
Jesus.
The
yeah.
diseases,
Yeah.
there was very little chance of them surviving.
Yeah.
So, but people keep posting these things saying, the Irish, now I'm so glad the Irish were slaves. It goes to show us that slavery was everywhere. And then
I've
somebody else,
seen
they're
that,
demeaning
yeah.
I know.
the African
Yeah.
slaves.
Yeah, I know.
And
There was a
basically,
difference.
there was a
There's
difference.
definitely a difference.
When I was researching this, I must say there was parts of it that were harrowing. Well, how
Yeah.
they treated the slaves.
Yeah.
And at least, like, they were going to be slaves, their kids slaves, every generation were going to be slaves. The Irish person was eventually going to be free.
Yeah.
So, I mean, when you're in a bunker, something they used to do to the slaves to punish them was put them into a little hole, cover it, and let them bake in the sun. And if you're doing that, your children are going to experience the same. Their children.
Yeah.
At least the Irish person knew. And also their colour separated them. So an African American wandering around Jamaica
Different like
was
that.
basically a free-for-all,
Yeah.
both sexually
Yeah.
and physically beating them.
That's so mad.
And it was, my eyes were opened actually with the research.
Yeah.
So the basic difference is that the Irish would be free.
And they had
This
hope.
woman touched base with me, and she said, I'm really pleased, and I read your book, and I want to make a movie out of it.
Brilliant.
So I thought the same, and I thought, great. I won't say anything yet.
Yes.
So anyway, I researched her,
Right.
and hope she's not going to watch this. She had big pictures of Trump,
Oh, okay.
and so she obviously comes from the slant that.
Okay, yeah, I know what you mean. Yeah.
Yeah.
Now I did Google her, and she was friends with Eric Roberts,
Oh,
and she had pictures of him, and she was in the movie business and everything. Now I've heard nothing, and I haven't pursued it
okay.
because
I know.
I wouldn't like to start.
That kind
I
of
wouldn't
a
like somebody to produce a book to prove or a movie to prove
yeah.
a point.
Yeah.
That,
exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah.
look, this is our. It's
It's-
like a
I
score
know,
sheet,
I know.
Yeah.
and
No, it's not about that. It's just a beautiful. You know,
Having an agenda.
and it
as well.
never ever ever occurred to me that this would happen. But every
Yeah.
morning it takes me about 20 minutes,
That's mad.
and it's really it's vitriolic. what
Do
they're
they
saying.
so you get good comments and bad comments? First of all, what do you get more of?
more good comments?
Okay. Does one bad comment outweigh, like,
No, it
which one has
doesn't.
an effect, like, the most? Which affects you the most? Bad comment or good comment?
Neither really.
Okay.
I'm chuffed when I get the good comment.
Okay.
But if I get the same bad comment,
Yeah.
so we'll say on the reviews, I might get. It's interesting. Some people like certain aspects, and some people don't like it.
Yeah.
So this next book I'm writing, I go between. I start in 1991 in this, then I go back to 18.
Yeah.
And I work forward, then I go back.
Mm.
So I did see a few people saying they didn't like it jumping,
Yeah.
but they still enjoyed it.
yeah.
So now I'm trying an experiment where I'm starting in 1878 and I'm going to write through
Yeah.
just to see, and it's really to challenge myself.
Yeah.
So, but no, they don't. Now, certain comments, some people aren't going to like everything.
Yeah,
So I have
yeah.
one part of the book totally praised, everybody loved it, blah, blah, blah.
Mm.
So this woman comes along and she says she was critical of everything with the book. And that's fair enough.
Yeah. And just wonder, like, when you like, do you imagine these characters when you're writing them? Do you see them in your head? Do you see it
Not
all?
initially.
Okay.
But you have to give it some kind of description.
Okay.
So I'd see the scene, like the one I'm
Okay.
working on at the moment. She is rushing down Manhattan to tell
Yeah.
her. So I saw the whole scene. I saw the wind, and I just saw her with stout legs for some reason.
What year? Like what?
18. No, she's rushing down in 1905.
Yeah.
Begins a scene. There's a scene in 1878, and it has come to light. What happened in 1878 has come to light in 1905,
Yeah.
and it's still a mystery.
Wow.
So this woman is galloping down,
Lovely.
Yeah.
and she has kind of taken on a life of her own. Because I thought, nah, she's going to be just
Yeah.
side character, and I wanted this other character to be the main character. But the other character, she's not interesting. Whereas this woman,
Is.
you know, yeah, she has.
Mm.
She's a gossip, and she's dying for recognition. And
Yeah.
the more I write her, like at the writers' group the last night, my friends, we all critique each other's
That's
pieces.
brilliant.
And
Yeah.
each of them said they could see she was really flawed, but liked her. I
Yeah.
must say, I did put down the laptop and think, that's brilliant.
You have a live audience. That is so cool. So you
Yeah.
know you're onto something good.
Yeah, you
Yeah.
do.
That's mad.
Do
I had
do
you always had that, like the live audience going through a book. No.
Well, no, this is I
First
critique
time.
their piece and they
I
critique
know.
my piece.
But
So
did,
yeah,
did you have that with the other books? Where
I
you-
did. Yeah,
Oh,
well, I
that's
did.
really
We used to
cool.
meet. I was living
That's so
in
cool.
Kildare, so we'd meet, and then you have to. Some people will like. It's interesting. Some people, they were very divided the last night about one particular scene, and some people loved it and some people hated it.
Yeah.
Some people
Yeah.
it made no sense. So there was a clear divide, and they were very vocal that
Yeah.
they didn't like one point, and the other crowd said they did like it.
Okay.
Yeah.
So it was-
Yeah.
Make up your own mind then.
Yeah.
Do you find it easy to write men, like to write male characters or female characters? Like, what is there a difference for you?
Yeah, I prefer to write female.
Yeah.
Men, yeah, you can. Sure, there's nothing to a man. You're right.
I always think of that. What's that
No.
movie where Jack Nicholson is the writer, and somebody says to him, "How do you write women so well?" And he said, "I think of a man and I take away reason and rationality."
Okay.
And that's his
okay.
way of writing female. And it's like, yeah, to put yourself in the opposite gender and write
Yeah.
from that perspective. I think
See,
it's
I am
difficult.
inspired by the history, and I'm totally inspired by women and the role they played and how they were very
Yeah.
much overlooked.
Yeah.
And the first book I wrote was based in Ireland, and it was 5 generations of Irish women between the year 1916 to 2016.
Yeah.
And I wanted to tell Ireland's history through the women's eyes, and God, did they suffer.
That was Memory of
Yeah.
Music. Isn't
Yeah.
it? Yeah.
Yeah, that's the one I got the award
Yeah,
for.
and
but
Ireland was very slow with equality.
in
not that,
every
you know,
way.
Well, originally it,
was worse.
wasn't. Originally Ireland, like when the thing is, this is what I was saying.
Oh,
to you,
yeah.
everyone with Ireland's history is so like it is obviously like that era was a massive part of Ireland's history. But there was a time before then when you're talking about like Brian Boru and like those times of the Kings and stuff.
Ronnie Whale and
Women
all
were
that.
like women were seen as like if you look at the Brehon Law, it was like proper structured around this sort of respect for women. Not even respect. It was like. It was mad, like it was proper. I always saw Ireland in history. It's the only place I could find where Ireland had where Ireland had like more goddesses than gods and more like
Wow, I didn't know that.
100%. Like all the Brehon Law, like there's a load of mad stuff in it. I can't think stuff right
See
now.
all the
but
Sheila and the gigs around the
Yeah,
place.
like
There was one
Ireland-
Parnell Street car park and all that.
Like,
Was
that's
kind of
why-
like worship the woman kind
like
of
Ireland
No
is
way.
Ireland was like that originally. Ireland like before like before like you know like the Roman Empire and the English Empire and all that stuff. Like Ireland, like that's why Ireland comes from Eru, who's the Irish goddess of the land. Like the whole country's named after a female character, whether she was real or mythology or whatever. That's up for people's opinions and stuff. But there's more goddesses than gods, and whole of Ireland, like the energy of Ireland, I've always found, like I don't know, like I believe in the energy of land and stuff, has been always like
Ireland
very
is female,
feminine,
yeah.
100%.
That never occurred to me.
No, honestly, it's
yeah,
mad.
the Brehon Law is really there's
It's
some.
mad.
I came across something in it when I was looking at it about how it was like the equivalent of an offence for a male not to please a female in the bedroom. when she
Yeah.
wants- like the
Offence.
stuff like that.
Get on,
really.
bring it on.
That was it was like an actual. There was a fine if like, and this was put in by kings. This fine was put in by the 5 kings of Ireland,
I love-
who put in that if you do not please the woman in the bedroom, that there's like a fine and like. But that
very
was actually put in
specific,
like by
yeah.
men who actually really. There was a proper sense of equality, and the
Wow.
kings of Ireland always seen that. Yeah, they were the ones who could lead and go to war and stuff like that, and they had that type of mind, the very masculine, like sort of. But the feminine energy was the sort of purpose to them going to war, if that makes sense. Like they wanted to protect that energy that was in Ireland, and they wanted to protect Eru, who's like Ireland, like which they seen as the female energy, and yeah,
Did it change with religion then?
Yeah.
100%.
And governments,
Like
male governments. Yeah.
What a shame.
I know.
It's
It's
shitty shame.
Ireland, before Ireland, like when it was all Celts, like that's a very Celtic thing, like, and the way they always seen it was like that they couldn't, like, they were so respected, like the Celts thought like it was mad that they came from a woman. They were just thought that, you know, they're here to fight, and just, you know, they were still very masculine, a lot of them. Actually, there's loads of stuff about Celtic people, actually, about them being saying they were like the first in history, Celts and the Native Americans, where they talk about cross-dressing and like being sort of, what's the word, like gender fluid and stuff like that. Like the Celts and the Natives were, and in fairness, the Native Americans were so similar in that sense as well, in terms of the respect for the very like godly, the goddess motherly energy and stuff like that. So actually, like, so yeah, Celts weren't the only ones. The ones my research I've only ever found were the Celts and the Native Americans, who were very much had that motherly energy as God, to explain it. And yeah, so I do find it interesting. But then, yeah, of course, then, you know, then all roads lead to Rome. Like, there's Rome was the beginning of that, like, I don't know what to call it, like the just false. Rome started, I believe, anyway, in my opinion. What? Chaos, yeah. But that whole, like, masculine, like, men are, like, that's where I believe that started, in Rome. And then Rome conquered everywhere, and they brought that energy all around the world. And now that's why that, like, patriarchal thing is there. And it's like, all roads lead to Rome is my favorite quote, and I think that's,
It's kind of falling apart now, though, isn't it? Like,
it is coming down quicker than, yeah, it is.
Olive, like, what? Because you had the publishing deal. What was your transition? Because now you self-publish.
Yeah.
How did
I got a
that come
publishing
about?
deal, and I won't mention who, because
it doesn't.
Yeah.
so I had two publishing deals. First, I had this boutique publishing deal where it would be stocked everywhere except in bookshops. It would be stocked everywhere. I'm only joking. Everywhere except in Easton's.
Okay.
But it was ridiculous.
Yeah.
So then I got the rights back for that book. It was an earlier book called Lucinda's List.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Oh.
And then
What's it called, sorry?
Lucinda's List.
Okay.
And it's not historical fiction. It was contemporary fiction.
Yeah.
Okay, yeah.
And no, it was it did okay.
Yeah.
But you know, there's a reason why you just don't want to hide your back catalogue.
Yeah.
And then my next book I got published was 1916, The Memory of Music, and that was the one being in Ireland. So I got that published, and everything was great. And then I had a year to write the next book.
Yeah.
So it was an Irish publisher, and there was a problem with the second book. So the last 4 lines were missing off of each page.
What?
When it was printed on Amazon.
Oh.
Yeah.
Off each
So,
page.
Off each page.
And did you need those 4 lines? Yeah.
On every page,
Oh,
did you need them?
So I battled with the publishing house for a year
Yeah.
to get this rectified, and it was not rectified. So it actually went on longer. It went on for about a year and 2 or 3 months.
Yeah.
How did they respond to that? When, like, what?
Oh, they said, yeah, they'd fix it. And then it was never fixed. And thankfully, somebody in America, a reader, had read it, and they'd sent me images. And I had sent them to the publisher immediately after the book was published. And,
How many were printed like that?
well, this is Amazon, so all
Amazon.
publishing houses now use Amazon Print on Demand.
Okay.
So basically, they don't need to stock them.
right.
So if somebody in America wants to read it, they buy it off Amazon.
So that's why you're going to get problems like that, which, like, yeah, because
Yeah.
they're probably just that new system that they're going with.
Yeah.
So is that the way most books are done now? Or?
That's it.
Okay, wow.
Well, what happened?
So then I battled with them for about, as I say, a year, over a year.
Yeah.
So in the end, I'll tell you the whole story.
Do.
Yeah, go
The
on.
drama. If my publishers
Yeah,
are
we
going to
love
watch this,
drama.
they're going to be kicking themselves.
Oh, well, go on.
So I had a solicitor
Yeah.
at the Writers' Union,
Yeah.
and that's it. So the
Okay.
Writers' Union said to me, the publishers were not letting me out of the deal. They said, you have to give us your next book. We're not giving you back the rights.
Mm.
There was a loophole in the contract. It said that if I say there's an issue and they don't resolve the issue within 6 months, now it doesn't say you can get the rights back. But
Yeah.
it's loose. So anyway, I was sending all these emails to the publisher saying I wanted the rights back. It's gone on. It's still there. So they made a mistake. They rectified it on Amazon.com, but it was still on Amazon.co.uk or vice versa. I can't remember which.
Yeah.
So the Writers' Union were saying to me, look, they were really delighted to report that they were going to let me out of the book deal. I didn't have to give them the new book.
Brilliant.
But I still wasn't happy. And I just wanted the rights back.
Yes.
So I had this solicitor, and he was totally vying for me. The Writers' Union, they were doing their bit. And so one morning I got up and I said, this is it, I'm going to throw my hat at this. So my first email was from the Writers' Union. They'll say, it's a hopeless case. You're never going to get the rights back. Then I had an email from...
I love it when somebody says it's a hopeless case.
Yeah,
then I'm like, no, it's not.
Yeah.
Then I had an email from the solicitor saying they're going to have to drop me. There's no way you could. This is pointless.
Yeah.
So I thought, and I wrote this email to the publisher saying, my team of solicitors are 100% behind me.
Yeah.
And I am going to go take this to court.
Yeah.
Now bear in mind I had nothing.
Yeah.
And I'm going to take this to court. Now I had friends who worked in various newspapers. And they knew the story and they were really interested.
Okay.
But there's no way I'd want my name dragged through all
I
of
know.
this. So I said, I have friends in the media. And when this reaches
Yeah.
their ears, I am not going to be... I'm not going to hang my head.
Yeah.
This happened.
Yeah.
So, the other thing was my team of solicitors. No solicitor. Nothing.
Oh, yeah, didn't.
The next morning I got up and there was an email saying, okay, I'll give you the rights back.
Go in.
Now, it had been a huge battle.
Oh,
That's
course.
right.
And there was loads of emails back and forth.
Wow.
That's good.
That's fair play.
So I got the rights back and I
Yeah.
spent a year, maybe about 10 months.
Yeah.
I uploaded it to Amazon. I learned an awful lot there. And then I started toying with ads on AMS, Amazon ads.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then I started toying with Facebook ads.
Yeah.
And then at the beginning of the COVID last year, it just started selling.
Wow.
Selling. Wow. So now this
So
is...
God bless COVID.
Yeah.
God bless COVID. So COVID actually, I stopped the full-time job and I...
But like you're
been
going
doing this-
really, really well since you did this. Like it's
Yeah.
unbelievable. Isn't
It took me a
the
year
success
fiddling
of
with
it.
the ads and all of that.
It's like
Yeah, and then you
amazing.
do promotions and you do various things, but like a writer's going to make very little money.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
Not to vulgarize it. My check for 6 months from one of my books was €360.
Yeah. That's mad. Like, do you think like writing? Because it does seem like out of all the industry, I don't know, the entertainment industry is so funny when people strive for it because they see like this idea of success or whatever and money and stuff like that, and it's so like the entertainment industry or like creative industry or whatever. Do you like? I don't know. I feel like writing's probably the one. Because they always say like, you know, don't do any of these things. Don't do a podcast if you want to try and make money. Don't do acting if you want to try and make money. Don't do anything. The thing has to come first before the money. And if you really believe in it and you really go for it, eventually I do believe the money will come for everyone if they believe in it themselves. But I
totally
feel like
believe in
writing
that,
is
yeah.
probably the
But you're
one where
going-
that's most accurate. Like where you really shouldn't get into writing if it's for the money. Like do you know what I mean?
No,
Because
nobody should get into it.
yeah,
Stephen King said something like, if you can buy a handbag. Now I forget what he says, but if you can pay your electricity bill, that's what he said.
Okay.
Writing
I love his-
really have talent.
I love his book
Wow.
on writing. Did you read that
Yeah,
on
that's
writing?
very
It's
good.
class, isn't
Yeah.
it? Yeah.
So it is, but you're right. If
can
I
pay
was
your
chasing money with
electricity bill,
it, you
but-
really are talented.
oh wow.
But you're going really
That's
well.
mad.
Like you,
I'm
it's
going
just
very well,
taken off
That
hugely.
thanks to the internet, would you put that down to that? Like
100%,
obviously
yeah.
down to your writing, of course.
Yeah.
But
And I
like,
think the book has to be good. Now I have,
Yeah,
I know
exactly,
people
yeah.
and they're turning out. There's a huge online presence.
Of course.
So there are writers nobody here will ever have heard of.
yeah.
Well,
Friends of mine who are avid readers will never have heard of them. They're
Yeah.
turning out 3 and 4 books a year.
Wow.
So I had to say to myself when I was doing this, do I want to write a quality book or do I want to churn out the story of Mary and Jimmy went up the hill and went down the
Yeah.
other side?
Yeah.
But I'd rather write the quality book.
Of course.
So it does
Yeah.
take me a year.
I think
And
word of mouth as well. Like one person will tip off the other one about
Yeah.
it. You know.
yeah.
When
But
it's a
like,
good book,
a
it
year's
spreads,
not that
doesn't
bad.
Yeah, well,
Yeah.
yeah. Sorry.
A year's not that bad. Like,
No, it's not. Now it's it's like going to the gym, sitting down to write the book. Not that I spend all day every
The
day
gym.
at the gym. It's a distant memory. It's the thoughts of going. So when I sit down, I
Yeah,
find
yeah.
myself going, oh. And you know, the worst thing is, I'm giving myself a year to write this, but I'm kind of behind schedule now.
Okay.
So I have to go home now.
What do you still read books yourself?
Oh, totally.
You
I have
do?
to read books.
Yeah.
But generally, when I'm working on a book, I like to read stories and books from that time. So at the
Right.
moment, I'm reading one based in New York, and it's awfully depressing, actually.
Yeah.
But it gives you a good insight into the life, and then you have to read. You have to read to get a sense of the place and the time.
Yeah.
So I read one now based in 5 Points in New York, where the next book is going to be set, and you have a real sense of it, and you have a real sense of the deprivation and the loneliness and how they had to strive to survive. And what's interesting is nobody would have come back to Ireland if they were given the option. They live in this crowded tenement. They made money. There was one woman, and she made $5 a week, and by the way, that was a lot. And she sold hair, so she would go and root in the bins of barbers, and she'd sell the hair for weeks.
No
she made
way.
$5, and her. Yeah.
Wow.
Everything is high stakes kind of stuff in living back in those times, isn't it?
Yeah.
Like you're living and
It's
or dying.
proper survival, isn't it?
Yeah, yeah.
I-
But nobody, this is the interesting thing, nobody would have returned to Ireland. Given the option, and they're living in these crowded tenements. And it's
Yeah.
Because there was still opportunity. I mean, how many bins could you raid in the middle of Ireland for hair?
that's it, yeah.
You know?
Where would even,
Where would you sell it if you got it?
that's it, yeah. You'd be.
Hairy people here, they all have hair of their own, like.
Yeah.
What I was gonna say, like, do you find reading other people's books? Do you ever find you accidentally find yourself writing in their style or anything? Like, are
Not
you
really, no.
Yeah, because that happens a lot of people, even with, like, I know, like, just massive actors and I've heard of other writers as well that say, some people say they don't like read or they don't consume other stuff. Like, I'll tell you an example. Like, some people, like, there's some directors who just like don't actually watch other movies, like.
When we had Hazy Hayes on as well, he said
Oh, yeah.
he doesn't like.
He doesn't
yeah.
listen to other rap music. He's a
Oh,
rapper
really?
who doesn't listen
Yeah.
to other rap music from Ireland. So because he's an Irish rapper or whatever, but he
Wow.
won't listen because he's afraid. Like, he just doesn't want to accidentally sort of subconsciously put in influence. And it happens to musicians. Probably the best example. Like, poor musicians get accused for stealing songs the whole time. They're not stealing songs. Like, they're not stupid.
They subconsciously put it in.
Subconsciously. Do you
I
ever
think
find-
that's it. No, and I think you have to read to be a good writer.
Yeah.
And I'm
I-
inspired by certain books I'd read.
Yeah.
Now, I don't have great patience, and if a book doesn't...
What do you be looking for when you're reading a book? Is it the story or is it their style or what is
style,
it?
and I love the
Devices.
nice prose, the voice, the character formation, something that's engaging. You know,
Do books ever make you cry?
nothing makes me cry. I
Yeah.
don't write romance.
Flowers and bunny rabbits.
Books yeah, so my own writing.
Yeah.
Sometimes when you pour makes me weep when I wake up on a Monday. No, you'd be very emotionally tugged. Yeah,
Okay.
maybe a tear off back there.
Have you ever killed any of your characters in any of your books? Like,
I did, yeah.
Main characters,
All men, were they?
No, the men were shot.
yeah, that was I guess
Strung
that
up, shot.
any characters that you liked, like, that were like,
Yeah, you get this one. You see, I go back and forth in time,
yeah.
and I had an aunt of mine that never reads, but she started reading it.
Mm.
This character is Goldie. You know,
Okay.
if I was to go anywhere, I'd like Goldie to come with me. And so the first section covers Goldie and her childhood, and then we go into 1939, and Goldie is dead at this point. So anyway, we go back again. You
That's
see more of
interesting.
Goldie.
That sounds cool.
So the aunt said to me, I was reading, I loved it, but then when I saw that Goldie was dead, I stopped reading it.
No,
But if she'd read on, the
Yeah.
book is filled with Goldie.
wow.
Yeah. It's about
That's not mad. I wonder how many times that's happened, like, with so many
So
movies.
stick it
and
with the
stuff.
book for Goldie is the
yeah,
message.
that's it, yeah.
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 Goldie will
I
reappear.
think that's
Yeah.
really significant when you kind of like there's a really prominent character for you. Because
Yeah.
I've done that. I've stopped reading books of my favourite character. I don't read a lot of fiction. I could read a lot more non-fiction, but I very clearly remember stopping watching Grey's Anatomy after they killed off George. Didn't want to know. Couldn't do
No
it.
way.
It wasn't the same.
That's
Yeah.
hard.
And I'd like, yeah, it would be the same with books in the past when I was a kid and stuff.
Yeah.
Do you know, like, it's in, maybe it is a thing in writing in general, but I know it's, like, applied in script writing for movies and stuff like that. But I suppose it is just in all sort of creative pieces, a thing called Kill Your Darlings.
Yeah.
You know about
and
that?
that breaks my heart.
Yeah.
And it has to be done. And I had to do it yesterday.
Yeah, so just like Kill Your Darlings is like, so yeah, what that is, it's like a term for when there's a piece that you love, like whether it's like a scene that you shot for a movie or a paragraph you wrote for a book or a storyline in a book or something that you have to cut for whatever reason, to
Holding
shorten it or
sense,
to make it
isn't
make sense.
Yeah.
And it's devastating when it happens.
And
But
because
you know
it could
has
be
to
your
go.
favorite parts
I
of the
know.
book.
Yeah, and I
Yeah.
had to do it with this book, but you know what I did? I
Yeah.
chopped it all out and I kept it and I said, I'm going to use that later.
For something
That's
else.
no,
No, I don't
exactly,
think
yeah.
I could because
But it
it's
makes
about a
it
man
easier.
pulling down a ruin of a house.
Pulling down a
A
room.
ruin of a house.
Oh, right.
Yeah. So but it is, and you have to do it. And
Yeah.
it's heartbreaking.
And you do
It's
that in
been-
every book, yeah, you have to
Oh,
cut,
you have
cut,
to.
cut.
Really? It happens
Okay.
that often?
Whose
then?
advice do you take on that? Because you have like the little writers group and stuff. Do you
Yeah, so
go
I would
with-
take theirs and the structural editor. But when you read it yourself in the end, so you'd have to leave it sit for about 6
Yeah.
weeks and do nothing. And you go
Yeah.
back and you see it with fresh eyes. And
Yeah.
if the pace isn't
Yeah.
up to the standard,
Yeah,
And you do
has to go.
You do see that in books where they didn't do that, and you can see it, don't you?
yeah.
That it's
And
a nice
then-
scene and all that, but it's nothing to do with the rest of
That's
the thing.
exactly
That's how you
it,
know
yeah.
with the rhythm of it. Like
Yeah.
if suddenly the rhythm changes in it,
yeah.
like with a book,
So
like when
that's
you're reading
exactly why
manuscripts
you
in
do
it.
it.
Yeah.
All right.
And there are lines and you think it's great. and God,
Yeah,
there'd be
but it
loads
doesn't
of-
sit with the rest of the
Has to
context.
go.
Of
Yeah,
it.
yeah.
Definitely.
You see, you write so much. Like
Yeah.
the new book I'm working on now, it's a bad draft, so I have about 25,000 words. But I've written, I'd say about 40,000. The other 15,000 I had to cut. And you're trying to find the character with the other 15,000.
Yeah.
And then I've also learned that if you will say, I go back and I have friends who just write the whole first draft. But I realize that I have to have the first 3 or 4 chapters brilliant and glowing because that's my foundation for the rest of the book.
That's your
I'll
point
use
of
those
reference that
characters.
you come back to.
Yeah, and I'll use those
yeah.
characters and their personality for the whole
Yeah.
rest of the book.
Brilliant.
And then because it's often happened that I've written this scene, I thought, oh God, he's gonna do this. This is the man who was ripping down with a rope
Yeah.
this ruin of a house that had been burnt, and there was the chimney breast was left, and I have this man, and it was so beautiful.
That sounds cool.
Brought
Yeah.
a tear to my eye. It was
Yeah.
so beautiful. But when I went back, I thought he can't do this because
Yeah,
it
yeah.
made no sense,
Yeah.
and actually
Yeah.
had changed the plot. So I have learned now
Yeah.
the first few chapters have to be solid.
Yeah.
Because you can spend, like, you could write thousands and thousands of words, but it doesn't fit, so it has to go. So that's why I like my first 3 chapters, 4 chapters. And then I
Yeah.
keep, it's like ironing, you just keep going over it. And then you think, something you can go back and put in a line, or you can go back and alter it in some way.
Because you go back doing it so much, you go back kind of with confidence that you know you can do this now. Does that make it easier? Like,
Yeah, it
Yeah.
does. You get confidence with every book.
yeah,
Like my head was totally wrecked when I was writing the second book about Jamaica, because I didn't know if
Yeah.
I could do it.
yeah.
My first book, I thought I'd bitten off more than I could chew because it was over 100 years.
Yeah.
This was going to be over 170 years.
Wow.
And
that's
I
amazing.
had this publishing deal and I had to deliver on time and it was really serious and it was
Daunting.
going to be reviewed in the papers.
Mm.
And I used to nearly break
And the
into a
second
close
book,
fight.
it's that second book thing, isn't it?
Oh
That's
yeah.
exactly
Trying
it,
to like.
but
live-
thankfully,
Yeah.
yeah, that's still the book that sells the most and gets the most comments and gets the most emails.
I love that idea that you're doing it for yourself as well. That most of us always hand charge of our lives over to somebody else,
Yeah.
so like the publisher or something like that. You just said, "No, I'm doing this,"
Yeah,
and that must be a kind of revelation that you can actually do it better.
yeah.
Mm.
Yeah, it's like publishing. I think that book, if I was to have that published, it's about €16. I'd get €1 of that.
Yeah. Do you know, I think a massive part as well, like just obviously the nonsense of like all people taking the money from all the work you've done and percentages, giving it to all these people and stuff. I also think there's a part of like, when you're promoting the book, like on Facebook and stuff, are people seeing like an advert from Olive Collins or is it from a publishing thing?
No, they just see it promoted by me.
Your
and then
name.
They see, and then they see
Exactly.
one line,
Exactly.
2 or
So
3 lines, and then a few different pictures.
what people want now is like a connection to the author and stuff, and that's just the age we're living in. Like the sort of like for example, like just the best selling, which is stupid because they're not authors, like, but some of the best selling books now are, this is an example, but like it's like they're people who do YouTubers, right, and they pay someone to write a book for it, and they're so sold. But why they're so sold so much is because we're living in a age now where people are so like authenticity is the new cool thing rather than like this fake Hollywood thing. That stuff is actually just, it's about dead. So rather than seeing some before where it's like people want to see from Universal Music class, but now people want to see from like Hazy Hayes. They want to see this musician. They want
From
to
his
see.
bedroom.
The guy he had.
They want to
Yeah.
see, they want to see his name rather than some big label. People don't care about the labels anymore or publisher. Like seeing your name is like probably a thing that helps sell it because it's like a connection.
But it's also kind of
PR.
targeted to people who are really interested in that particular thing. So you're
Exactly,
actually connected straight to them,
That's
not
exactly
sitting
it.
in a
Yeah.
bookshop in a shelf that they'll
Yeah.
never go into.
Yeah.
So you're actually
And-
direct line
yeah.
to them.
Yeah, your own.
And Amazon is the biggest shop window.
Yeah,
Yeah.
Now I
yeah.
know there is huge. They're criticised an awful lot. Some of the comments I get maybe twice a week. I don't buy from Amazon. Now
Yeah.
this book is also on Barnes and Noble, but Amazon you have to offer them exclusivity. You can offer them, but I offer them exclusivity for these 2 books.
Brilliant.
So then people read pages. So they've signed up to
Yeah.
Kindle Unlimited. So
Yeah.
they can read pages, and I'm paid on each page. Not
Wow.
a whole lot.
Whoa, each page.
That's so cool.
Yeah, not
That's
a whole
a
lot.
cool
It's
structure,
0.004.
Okay,
To
right.
be honest with you, it makes up about a fifth of my income.
That's
It,
from
it
them.
makes up more, do you say, than them someone just buying the book.
Yeah, in
Yeah.
a lot of the cases it would. Well, it makes up about a fifth of my income because not everybody subscribes to Kindle Unlimited.
But did you ever think now that you'd be a full-time writer, like financially?
I did, but I
free?
never thought it would happen like this.
That's amazing, though. I don't think anyone ever thought it could happen like this. This is a
Yeah,
whole new world,
this
isn't it?
Yeah, it's a total new ball game.
Yeah.
What's the best thing about writing for you now?
The best, it's just the joy of it. You get up and you get lost in this whole new world you're creating.
Yeah.
There's huge joy, great inspiration. I think I've always worked in various jobs. I worked in advertising.
Yeah.
I'm creative. The advertising was always just a means to an end. But to get up and really work on a book and get lost in this character and get lost in this time and finish writing and go downstairs, I have an office upstairs, sit on a couch and start reading more books about this time.
Yeah.
And then you're watching television and you find yourself making notes. So I have notepads everywhere. I hope I don't drop dead. My brother will be in the house going,
What
And
would
this
be
is
the worst thing about the writing? Because there obviously are negative aspects to it. That
sometimes
you
you
kinda
get
touched on.
insecure and you think, okay, what happens if Facebook closes?
Yeah.
But if anything happens,
Brilliant.
yeah,
Or the internet it breaks.
that's a job.
It breaks.
You get moments like that.
And
And
then because it's such a solitary job and you're sitting on your own with your own madness,
That's
and
it,
then
yeah.
you convince yourself that could actually fucking happen. And
Yeah.
it's like, oh my god.
so it's actually focus, and it breaks
Yeah.
my heart, and I'm not focused lately. So
Yeah.
now, you heard it here first. I'll be so focused.
That's so cool.
Good.
But it is, you get great inspiration. I mean, there's a huge joy in it. And you're not pursuing it, but it's like something that fascinates you.
Yeah.
So New York at the moment fascinates me.
yeah.
And you have the privilege of returning to 1878
Yeah.
and walking in these people's footsteps.
I love
Yeah.
that. That's
and I
cool.
love the history of Ireland, the kind of melancholy and the
Yeah.
sadness and how they survived. And then I can go out here as an orphan and follow in their footsteps
Yeah.
and pursue to see what happens.
Yeah.
Because the Irish, it happens so often. They arrived in New York with nothing, even retracing the steps of the Wild West. And it's like going on a holiday. Once I see a place, that's it.
That's cool.
But I can't say I'm totally finished with the West.
That's
Like
cool.
I'd love to go to Texas in my imagination.
Yeah.
And do you to research it, like do you into like Dublin Castle or different places?
No,
like
it's
that,
all
or
online.
Online, yeah.
Books.
You can research it that way. Academic papers. Okay,
Journals are just magnificent.
brilliant.
I love
Diaries
journals
that have
and
been kept.
academic
Oh, yeah.
papers,
Now, funnily,
yeah.
the Irish didn't keep a lot of diaries. I suppose most were illiterate around the 1870s.
Yeah, and it was like the Irish tradition was like Eddie Lenihan, his whole thing, like all those Shanakees, their whole thing was put mouth to mouth, not pen to paper or something like that. It was an old thing of like it was seen as back in old Ireland that same time it was seen as not intelligent. If you were writing, it meant you couldn't attain the information yourself.
Oh, that's interesting. I
Yeah,
didn't know that.
It's mad, yeah. It's back then that's like proper up in the nobles and stuff. Like when they're talking about like the kings and the stuff like that. That was a thing within the nobles, like in Ireland. Not between like the civilians and stuff. It wasn't. But yeah, between like poets in Ireland were classed as higher than kings. Because they were the ones who could attain that information and Shanakees and stuff like that. But yeah,
That's interesting.
but that was at that time. But yeah, like later on, it was more of a thing of illiterate, like
So we're hoping with your next book you'll just recite it for us, yeah.
No problem.
We'll record it here. Forget about that out writing you're doing.
Yeah.
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 Then you wouldn't have to worry about like Facebook and Amazon
That's
being
it, yeah.
broken, 'cause as long as you were in
I'll
touch.
just sit here and record.
Yeah, I think we'll finish up now. Yeah, thanks a million for coming on.
Great,
That was
guys,
great.
thanks for having me.
Thank you, yeah,
Very
it was
much
Thank
enjoyed
you.
that.
brilliant.
That was a class conversation. And yeah, for
Yeah.
people want to check, are both those books on Amazon?
Both those books, all my books
Yeah.
are on Amazon.
Yeah,
Brilliant.
so if you just
Yeah.
look up Olive Collins.
And
book
tell us
and
when the
book.
next one is published so we
Yeah.
can mention it. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah,
okay,
absolutely,
yeah.
yeah. No, it's great.
Oh, you
yeah.
do.
Oh,
Yeah.
yeah.
Let's do that.
Actually,
Weaver's
do you do
Legacy.
giveaways?
Yeah.
We can,
We
yeah.
do. Yeah. Yeah.
I'll
yeah.
sign these and I'll give them to you.
Do
Oh,
brilliant.
class.
Yeah. So if
That's
you like
class.
and share this
Yeah.
video, you
Yeah.
can win these books
Yeah.
Signed.
signed by
That's
Olive.
savage.
Yeah. So like and
Class.
share. Like
Yeah,
and share.
subscribe. There's a
Yeah.
YouTube thing. Yeah, so subscribe and leave a comment after you've subscribed. And
To win the books.
yeah,
Yeah.
that's
Yeah.
really cool.
That's
Yeah.
cool.
Thanks a
That's
million.
savage.
Too.
That's class. Like,
Brilliant.
Jesus.
I'll actually borrow your pen there and I'll sign that.
Yeah, you
That I really like the cover of the
They're
one
so
on the left.
cool.
I like both of them, but there's something about the one on the left.
This one,
Sorry,
Weaver's
This one?
Legacy,
Yeah,
yeah.
that's
yeah,
beautiful.
you have to do all of that yourself. Now, it's easy enough
So
because there's
cool.
such a market that you have sites where
Yeah.
they have the covers.
Yeah, that's a beautiful.
Yeah.
cover.
Beautiful,
That's
yeah.
a cover that catch my attention. Like
That's
against
the whole
other
thing in
ones.
itself, though. Like, yeah, I worked as a picture editor. for a
Oh,
little
yeah,
while
you
as
would have
well,
done
yeah.
that side of it.
Yes, I did. Yeah, the
Right.
literary agent and I worked for Universal Music doing picture editing for a while. But yeah, that I really enjoyed that, like sourcing all those images and stuff.
Yeah.
And
Because I actually do judge a book by a cover. I do. I'm
that's
not
because
gonna
you're
lie.
shallow.
Do you want
I
another
know,
cup
I'm
of coffee?
shallow.
Yeah, I'd love
Have a
one.
cup of
No, if it's handy.
Yeah.
Yeah, thanks a million for coming on.
Thanks a
and
lot.
Yeah,
Olive.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Thanks for having me. I've really enjoyed that.
Yeah, make sure to check out Olive Collins books on Amazon, and yeah, subscribe and leave a comment if you did, and we'll give away 2 of those books. That was sound. Yeah, thanks a million. This is also available on Spotify for anyone else that wants to listen for the next one, because now we're at the end, and I should have told you that at the start. And yeah, if you want to support us as well, go to patreon.com/Ireland's podcast. Yeah, eat your fruit and
And your vegetables
your
Brush your
veg.
teeth.
and brush your teeth.
Really?
Well, don't bother if you don't
Smoke a few cigarettes.
Yeah. Drink some whiskey, get right in.
Yeah.
Read a book and drink some whiskey.
Yeah,
Yeah.
right.
Yeah.
That's our professional advice. Goodbye.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Bye-bye.
Go to bed now.
Go to bed. Thanks.